It ain't no crazy shit. It's just, at the end of the day, business is business.
Kodak Black's story turns chaotic fast. Like blink and everything's upside down. Friends start acting different, lines get crossed, families get caught in the middle, and it all unravels quicker than anyone expected. Today we're breaking down how everything spun out of control and why it hit so hard.
Rest in peace to that lady, man. I ain't that lady. It's just funny. I can't lie, it's just funny to me.
Growing up in Pompano Beach, Kodak Black got pulled into street life early, no hesitation. He was breaking into homes at a young age, moving reckless, and it didn't take long before trouble caught up with him. He ended up locked up while still in middle school for taking a car, and after that, it became a non-stop cycle. Juvenile detention, release, then right back again.
And I ain't kidding. Rest in peace to her soul. You heard? Rest in peace to that lady, man.
That pattern wasn't just bad luck. It dragged him deeper into serious issues and threw him right into one of Florida's most heated rivalries. During one of those lockups, Yak crossed paths with Whiz the Wizard. At that point, Kodak's name was already buzzing heavy, and Whiz was known as someone solid who had his back inside. But things didn't stay solid for long. Later on, everything took a dark turn when Whiz lost his life, and rumors started flying that someone close to him might have played a role. Before that moment even happened, though, the pressure and tension around Yak was already building like crazy. Whiz came out of Hollywood, Florida, representing a crew called Zone 10.
It's hilarious, to be honest.
People in the area knew that name carried weight, and with that kind of influence came attention and serious problems. Then in 2016, things escalated when rivals reportedly pulled up into the area and targeted Wiz's younger brother, Jib. Word on the street was Jib wasn't even deep in anything like that, but Whiz had built up a long list of enemies, and that danger didn't stay contained. It spread to the people around him fast. Jib and his friend Bankhead were just chilling, nothing out of the ordinary, when everything flipped in seconds. A car pulled up out of nowhere and shots rang out, turning the whole moment into pure chaos. Bankhead survived and later told police what he knew, but Jib didn't make it through that night, and that loss hit hard. Zone 10 was already active in the streets.
That's my, like I said, if it was that deep with a fault, it ain't no crazy shit. It's just, at the end of the day, business is business.
But after Jib lost his life, the situation exploded, and the tension shot to a whole different level. The people allegedly behind it was said to be tied to a neighborhood called Liberia, connected with a group known as HMT. And once that line was crossed, it didn't stop at just one situation. It opened the door to a non-stop back and forth that kept building. This wasn't just about one crew either. Liberia wasn't a single group. It was made up of multiple sets, like Dania, Hot Boys, Grand Mafia, Go-Getters, Junior Mafia, and Family Forever. Each of these names carried their own weight, and many of them already had issues with Zone 10, which kept the pressure high and the situation heated at all times. But things didn't stay contained between just Zone 10 and Liberia. Another group from Dania called the Nightmares got pulled in and ended up linking with Zone 10, forming an alliance known as Double M. That move didn't calm anything down. It made everything way more intense. Since Liberia and the Nightmares were already close in location, problems had been building under the surface, and this just pushed everything closer to the edge. At one point, things nearly went left for Psycho Bob and his friend Brat, but they managed to escape in time. In July 2017, they were outside when a car suddenly pulled up, and loud shots were reported in their direction, turning the whole moment tense in seconds. Somehow, both of them reacted fast, took off running, and avoided getting hit. But that close call only added more pressure to an already heated situation. Just days later, everything escalated again, this time at a packed neighborhood gathering. Some NT members had been posting their location online, putting everything out in the open, and Psycho Bob and Brat made a bold move by pulling up to the area. Witnesses said they stepped right into the scene and started firing toward a house where rivals were believed to be, showing they weren't backing down from any confrontation. But here's the wild part. No one was hit, and after they ran through everything they had, they jumped back in their car and sped off fast. And it all happened in front of a crowded block party. No masks, nothing to hide their faces, making it extremely easy for law enforcement to figure out who was involved. It didn't take long before officers tracked them down and arrested both of them, bringing that moment to a quick end. Psycho ended up with a lighter sentence and spent a few years locked up. And surprisingly, that whole situation became a major turning point for him. While he was inside, Kodak Black was locked up at the same facility, setting the stage for another connection that would matter later. That's when Psycho and Yak finally linked up, and Yak kept it real with him. He said he was planning to sign him once they both touched the outside. Before that moment, Psycho had a reputation for moving reckless, and music was just something he did on the side, nothing serious. But connecting with Kodak gave him a real opportunity to switch lanes, leave that life behind, and actually focus on something bigger. For a second, it looked like everything was falling into place perfectly, but it didn't last. What happened next caught a lot of people off guard and flipped the whole situation. By 2020, Psycho Bob was released, but Kodak was still locked up, and that gap changed everything. His music hadn't fully taken off yet, and without that guidance or support system, he slowly drifted right back into the same environment he had been trying to escape. At the same time, tensions in Liberia were rising even higher, and things were getting unpredictable fast. In September 2020, a man named Jan Navis Lewis was walking through an area connected to HMT. Even though he wasn't officially part of that group, he had close ties with people there, and that alone put him in a risky position without him even knowing. Your mama got put up. People in Liberia were saying someone had been driving through MT's area searching for a specific target, moving with intent. But instead of finding who they were looking for, they came across Jan Navis just walking home. In a tragic moment, he was attacked and lost his life right there in the street, turning an already tense situation into something even heavier and more devastating. Situations like this happen way too often. People who aren't even involved end up caught in the middle of ongoing conflicts, and it's always the worst outcome. But what happened next showed just how far things had really escalated and how intense everything had become. After Jan Navis lost his life, HMT was looking for retaliation, trying to figure out who was responsible. But with no clear answers and no exact target, the situation took a shocking and serious turn that had people stunned. Instead of finding the person involved, reports claimed they went after someone close to Psycho Bob, his mother. On October 15, 2020, she was sitting on her porch, just a normal moment, when a car pulled up and loud shots were reported in her direction. She was injured, but thankfully survived, making it through a terrifying situation that shook everyone paying attention.
But the tension didn't ease up at all. It kept building. Just days later, reports said one of Psycho Bob's close friends, Taco, also lost his life, adding even more weight to everything going on. The situation didn't stay in the streets either. It spilled over into music, and people started paying attention to certain lines being said. Lyrics like, "Taco had died when mama had cried," told Gab hard to focus, got hit with that, left us right there, gave us different doses. "I'm the man of my city, I'm the landlord too. They say streets done 'em, 'cause I don't mess with you." Those words had people talking heavy, connecting dots and bringing more attention to the situation. Even with all that, at that point, everything was still mostly contained within Broward County, but the intensity was already at a level that couldn't stay quiet for long. Everything shifted in 2021 when Kodak Black came home and wasted no time getting active. He started signing artists to his Sniper Gang label, and suddenly way more eyes were locked in on everything connected to this situation. Yak was supposed to stay locked up for a few more years, but that all changed when he received a pardon, putting him right back in the spotlight and right in the middle of one of the most talked about situations tied to the rap scene. As soon as he touched down, Kodak got straight to building his roster, bringing in names like Psycho Bob, Whiz the Wizard, and their associate Wham. That move changed the energy completely and pushed everything into a new direction. Kodak wasn't originally tied into the issues between Double M and HMT, but once he started linking up in music with Psycho, Whiz, and Wham, he got pulled straight into the middle of it without any buffer. On tracks together, they didn't hold back. They started calling out rivals, and people everywhere started paying close attention. On Righteous Reapers, Psycho raps, "Snipers on my side who ain't telling. Nightmare in my blood, they know I'm already ready. I eat faces, fight cases, blowing little bread, dropping bodies on the daily," making it clear how serious the energy had become. On that same track, Psycho also took direct shots at Liberia, saying, "6 dead homie, I get done with that. Stick that go oopa. I was lurking in the hoopty, pointing out in your city, they know Lil Psycho." And those lines had people talking non-stop across different circles. At the same time, Psycho, Wham, and Whiz were all starting to gain real traction in the music world, especially with Kodak backing them heavy.
But while their music careers were picking up speed, the tension outside the studio wasn't slowing down at all. In fact, it was building right alongside the spotlight, making everything feel even more intense and unpredictable. Things took another tragic turn in March 2021, and this moment hit especially hard. Reports claim that ongoing street tensions involving HMT Trey played a role in a heartbreaking situation where his mother, Misty, lost her life. She was simply opening her nail salon in broad daylight, just starting the day, when someone approached and carried out the attack, turning a normal moment into something devastating. Some sources tried to connect the situation to Whiz the Wizard, but details stayed unclear and nothing was fully confirmed. According to circulating claims, James Hardwick was said to have been the driver, not the person who directly carried out the attack on Trey's mother. There were also rumors saying both the driver and the person involved were paid days before it happened, but up to now, no one has been officially identified as the one who set everything up, leaving a lot of questions still unanswered.
After that, attention started shifting towards Psycho Bob, with people speculating about possible connections, even without clear proof. The spotlight was getting heavier, and the pressure around his name kept building fast. Not long after, another situation unfolded, and this time Psycho himself was the one targeted. He was driving when two vehicles suddenly boxed him in, leaving him trapped with nowhere to go. In seconds, someone jumped out and opened fire on his car, turning everything into chaos instantly. Psycho was seriously injured and left bleeding in the street, but emergency responders got there quickly and managed to save his life, pulling him through a critical moment. Even with how public that incident was, no one was officially charged, which only added more tension to an already heated situation. Reports claim that issues between Trey and Liberia City escalated even further after everything that happened, and nothing was cooling off. There were also rumors suggesting the conflict wasn't just about earlier events. People started talking about personal situations involving Psycho Bob and someone close to Liberia City, adding another layer of drama and bringing even more attention to everything unfolding. Psycho even dropped a diss track called Stepdaddy, and the lyrics had people reacting instantly. He raps, "That's your mama? Yeah, I smashed it. I done beat a son. That's your stepdaddy. I'ma call your mama." And those lines sparked a wave of responses and conversations everywhere. It didn't take long before Trey and Sig answered back, pulling Kodak Black even deeper into the situation through their own track, FTO. With lines like, "Chop, knock 'em out," they made it clear this wasn't just tension anymore. It had fully spilled into the music scene. They acting untouchable like they protected at the highest level, and I got proof. They know we spinning, so they moving cautious, riding protected, talking slick like they can make somebody vanish. Those weren't just random lyrics, they reflected the kind of energy and pressure surrounding everything at that time, making it clear how serious things had become. Just a couple months after Psycho Bob survived that shooting and ended up in the hospital, there was another close call that kept the tension high. Reports say rivals caught him slipping again in Dania Beach and tried to line him up, but this time he managed to escape without getting hurt. Even so, the pressure stayed heavy, and it was clear he was still a target. Then things took another serious turn. Double M suffered a major loss, and rumors started spreading fast that someone close to Whiz the Wizard might have played a role in setting him up. Whiz wasn't just anybody. He had built a strong name and carried serious presence, and for a long time, people said rivals couldn't even get close to him. Looking back to around 2015, authorities had even claimed Whiz was leading a group tied to break-ins across the city, which only added to his reputation and the way people viewed him. All of that history made what happened next hit even harder and raised even more questions about how everything unfolded. After his brother Jib lost his life, rumors started spreading that Whiz was looking for retaliation and had his sights on someone named Denzel Williams. Reports claim Whiz fired at him but missed, and Williams managed to escape without getting hit, barely making it out of that situation. After getting away, Williams went straight to the police and identified Whiz as the person responsible, which led to Whiz being arrested and facing serious charges. Williams was expected to testify in court, and that testimony could have changed everything. But before that could even happen, he lost his life after being approached by someone. And just like that, the case against Whiz ended up getting dropped, leaving a lot of unanswered questions behind. After that situation, Whiz's music career started picking up momentum, especially alongside Kodak Black, and it looked like he was stepping into a bigger spotlight. But even with that progress, the conflict tied to everything around him didn't disappear. It stayed active and unresolved. Then things got complicated between Whiz and Kodak Black themselves. Reports said Yak only gave Whiz $30K when he signed a sniper gang, and that sparked tension that quickly spilled online. They started throwing shots at each other on Instagram, and fans jumped in, picking sides and fueling the back and forth. Whiz later downplayed it, saying it wasn't real beef and calling it business, but the tension was obvious and people were watching closely. Before Yak and Whiz could fully clear things up, the situation took a shocking and tragic turn. Reports claimed Whiz may have been set up, and soon after, he lost his life in a devastating way that left people stunned. In September 2021, Whiz's body was found outside a home in Hollandale Beach, and the scene raised more questions than answers. Investigators didn't find any shell cases nearby, which led them to believe the incident may have happened somewhere else and his body was possibly moved afterward, adding another layer of mystery to an already complicated story. Authorities later charged E. Trey in connection with Whiz's passing, and investigators suspected that Liberia Sig may have helped move the body after everything happened. Even with those updates, people were still left confused, trying to figure out how Whiz got caught off guard like that. He wasn't known for moving careless. People saw him as someone who stayed sharp, aware, and always thinking ahead. That's exactly why rumors started spreading fast, with many believing someone close to him might have played a role. One name that kept coming up was CJ, a figure who had connections on both sides of the conflict. CJ was known to have ties to E. Trey, but at the same time, he was also around Whiz the Wizard, which made the situation look even more complicated. Even after earlier situations involving people close to both sides, CJ was still moving between them, and that had people seriously questioning where his loyalty really stood. It didn't sit right with a lot of people, and the speculation just kept growing louder. Rumors claimed CJ may have been paid by E. Trey and others to set Whiz up, which made the situation sound even more shocking. Being cool with both sides was already risky, but the idea of turning on one while staying connected to the other had people reacting heavily. What really pushed everything over the edge was what people said happened next. Reports claimed CJ went online after Whiz lost his life and started posting in a way that raised eyebrows. One post showed stacks of cash arranged to spell out King Cobra, and that instantly got people talking, with many believing it was hinting at something deeper. That energy only made the situation feel more intense and added even more attention to everything going on. Then in March 2023, the story took yet another dark and tragic turn when CJ himself lost his life, leaving even more questions behind and keeping the cycle going. CJ had his own separate issues in the area, and there's no confirmed link directly tying what happened to him with Whiz's situation. But the way everything played out had people thinking it might have been personal. Authorities found CJ inside his car, and the scene was described as extremely disturbing. After the attack, the vehicle was set on fire, and rumors spread quickly about how serious and intense the situation really was. Those details shocked a lot of people and added even more weight to everything surrounding this ongoing conflict. After the news broke, Whiz's associate Wham took to social media and said people played with Whiz and ended up set on fire, which instantly fueled more reactions and speculation online. And according to rumors, Whiz might not have been the only one affected by everything that unfolded. Another affiliate known as Blood also lost his life, with claims suggesting CJ may have had a role by setting things up through someone he knew. None of it was fully confirmed, but the talk around it kept growing and pulling more attention into the situation.
Whiz's passing was already a huge loss for Glim, and the impact was heavy across the board. But what really caught people off guard was how everything started unfolding afterward, especially involving people who were once close to him, including Kodak Black. That part left fans confused and asking even more questions about what was really going on behind the scenes. Kodak and Whiz had some label tension before everything happened, but at first it didn't seem that serious. That's why people were surprised when Kodak dropped the track Back for Everything and said, "Yeah, Glim Gang, but I ain't talking Rick Ross. Double M Gang, I took that from Whiz, rest in peace." Those lines hit differently, and fans immediately started reading into what it could really mean. But it's your fault the way you let them get you. That line had fans reacting instantly, and the energy around it was intense. It sounded like a direct message, almost like Kodak was calling Whiz out even after his passing, which caught a lot of people off guard. Then in another part, it felt like he was also speaking toward Wham, saying things like, "You saying the same, you acting different," and that just made everything feel even more personal. Still, Yak later showed a completely different side on the track I Wish, where he opened up and admitted, "I hate I fell out with Whiz. You did what you did, so I did what I did." That line hit different, showing there was real regret mixed into everything that happened, and fans started seeing a deeper layer to the situation. After Whiz lost his life, it took time for investigators to piece everything together, so H. Trey was still free for a while, and tension stayed high during that period. In the middle of all that, there was a public moment that had people talking everywhere. Trey and Psycho Bob ran into each other at a mall, and things got loud fast. Witnesses said Psycho started mocking Trey, even bringing up painful family situations, which made the confrontation even heated and uncomfortable to watch. It wasn't just a small argument, it felt like everything was boiling over right there in public. Sadly, it didn't stop there. In November 2021, another tragic loss hit someone connected to the situation. Hatch's associate, Trey, lost his father in a devastating incident while he was sitting in his car, and that moment added even more weight to everything already going on. Rumors spread quickly about who might have been responsible, with some pointing toward rivals, but nothing was ever officially confirmed. Hatch was already active in the streets, but losing his father pushed things to another level, and people started saying he began applying serious pressure in response, making the situation even more intense as everything continued to unfold. Reports later connected A. Trey to an incident a few months down the line involving Rosa Bordeaux and Derek Thomas, where both lost their lives on the same day, adding even more weight to an already tense situation. Even with all that, the overall conflict didn't slow down. It stayed active and unpredictable. By 2023, things escalated again when Hatch and Liberia Sig were allegedly tied to another situation connected to Double M, where a member named Marlowe lost his life. That moment pushed everything even further, and it felt like the back and forth had no limits anymore. After Hatch's father passed in November 2021, the activity picked up fast and didn't ease up. Just weeks later, reports claimed that A. Trey and Liberia Sig targeted Psycho Bob's home, but thankfully no one inside was hurt during that situation. Still, the message behind it had people paying close attention. Then about a month later, another man named Marquis Florence lost his life, and investigators later pointed toward A. Trey as someone involved in setting that situation up, which only added more tension to everything unfolding. Despite everything happening around him, Psycho Bob stayed active online, continuing to call out rivals and respond publicly. He had already been targeted multiple times, both on the road and even at his home, but that didn't stop him from speaking out, which kept the spotlight on him heavy. Around that same time, he dropped the track Stepdaddy, which brought even more attention and added to the already intense energy surrounding everything. On that track, he referenced personal situations and even mentioned Hatch's father with lines like, "I'll be geeking, I'll be rolling. He was about 50, got hit up with him," and those words had people reacting strongly across the board. Even as his music started gaining more traction and numbers, the real-life situation tied to everything didn't slow down at all. It kept building right alongside the attention, making everything feel even more serious and unpredictable. If anything, the situation was only getting more intense and harder to ignore with time. By 2023, Broward County turned into a chaotic scene, and everything started escalating fast with one situation after another. On April 9th, reports claimed a man from Liberia named Mark Veris targeted Blim and was connected to the loss of a member known as Sass. Veris was already building a serious reputation, and just a month later, he was allegedly tied to another incident where two individuals, Terry McKenzie and Renato Donna, both lost their lives on the same day, making the situation feel even heavier. By July 2023, the tension kept rising as Hatch and Liberia Sig were reportedly linked to another situation involving Psycho Bob's associate Marlowe. But at that time, Psycho couldn't respond or even move freely because he was already locked up from a 2022 case. Police had pulled him over for speeding, and during a search of his vehicle, they reported finding over 20 grams of marijuana along with a firearm, which led to serious charges. Psycho Bob later pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years, taking him off the streets during a critical moment when everything was escalating. With Psycho no longer around, the focus shifted in a disturbing direction, and the situation didn't calm down at all. Instead of reaching him directly, reports claimed his family became targets again, which made everything even more concerning. His mother, Dorothy, had already survived a previous incident, but the danger didn't go away. Then in September 2023, things took a tragic and devastating turn that shocked many people. On September 13, 2023, authorities alleged that E. Trey, Liberia Sig, and 2 others went to Dorothy's home while she was sitting in a van. Multiple shots were reported toward the vehicle, and she sadly lost her life at the scene, leaving the entire community shaken and raising even more questions about how far everything had gone. Not long after, social media lit up fast with reactions, people going live, sharing opinions, and speaking on the situation, which only made the tension online even heavier. The conversation spread quick, and everyone seemed to have something to say about what had just happened. While Hatch wasn't directly linked to that specific incident, investigators believe plans had been in motion long before it actually happened. Names like E. Trey and an associate called Rico started coming up in connection to the case, adding more layers to an already complex situation. According to investigators, discussions about targeting Dorothy were allegedly happening as far back as February 2022, which made everything feel even more calculated and drawn out. It took over a year before anything actually took place, and during that time, she wasn't even living near the areas where the conflict was active, likely thinking she was far removed from all of it.
But reports claim her address was found online, and from that point, everything took a tragic turn. People showed up at her home, and the situation unfolded in a way that left many shocked. And even after that, nothing slowed down. By December 2023, more incidents were being reported. Liberia Sig, Mark Veras, and an associate named Vondarius Davis were allegedly involved in another situation targeting someone named Messiah Sumter. They believed he was inside a building and opened fire, but he wasn't actually there at the time. Instead, another person was injured and survived, adding yet another layer to the chaos and confusion surrounding everything. Authorities have described Liberius as one of the most active figures tied to these ongoing situations, which kept attention locked on him. Then by January 2024, things escalated even further. Reports claimed he was involved in the passing of Terrence Farrington Jr., with Mark Veras also being linked to that same situation, showing that the cycle still hadn't slowed down at all. Just a week later, Veras was reportedly connected to yet another fatal incident involving a man named Johnny Henderson, showing how fast everything was spiraling out of control. It felt like the situation wasn't slowing down at all, with one event leading straight into the next. That same month, there was another attempt involving Messiah Sumter. A vehicle believed to be his was targeted, but instead, an uninvolved young woman was injured, which left many people shocked and frustrated as the situation kept affecting those not connected to the conflict. For a while, it all seemed non-stop, like there was no pause at all. But eventually, investigators started closing in, and things began to shift behind the scenes. The incident involving Terrence Farrington Jr. became a major turning point in the case, helping authorities move things forward in a serious way. Officials said suspects were identified after key evidence tied to a vehicle used in that incident was recovered. Fingerprints and other findings helped connect the dots, giving investigators what they needed to start building a stronger case. Then a few months later, everything caught up all at once in a major development. Liberia Sig, Trey, and several of their associates were hit with a massive indictment, with authorities alleging involvement in 8 deaths and multiple attempted incidents, bringing huge attention to the case. One name that stood out was Jared Charles, also known as Hot Rod. Investigators claim he was tied to the incident involving Dorothy, as well as the situation connected to Terrence Farrington Jr. and other serious events, putting him at the center of multiple accusations. When Hot Rod was arrested in March 2024, officers reportedly found disturbing evidence on his phone that pushed the case even further and added more weight to everything investigators had been building. According to authorities, this situation went beyond personal rivalries and pointed to something much deeper, showing just how complex and far-reaching everything had become. There were also claims that some of these incidents weren't just personal, they were being carried out for money.
which added a whole new layer to everything. Investigators said they uncovered messages pointing to possible connections with LKB, suggesting alleged paid setups tied into these ongoing conflicts, making the situation even more complicated. LKB is known as one of the more active groups in Broward, and Kodak Black had ties through an artist connected to that side named Lil Cricks. That connection alone had people paying close attention, especially as different sides kept colliding. At the same time, LKB was dealing with issues involving another group called Snap AF. Reports claim Snap AF struggled to handle the pressure on their own and allegedly reached out to Liberia for help, targeting LKB affiliates, showing how alliances were shifting and overlapping.
One situation that stood out involved a man known as Color Money Red, who was seriously injured in an incident authorities linked to this ongoing tension. Investigators believe money, reportedly around $20K, may have been exchanged, which showed just how deep everything had gotten and how organized some of these moves might have been. Now, Liberia Sig, HMT Trey, and several others are facing extremely serious charges with consequences that could change their lives completely. And while many of those connected to these situations were taken into custody in 2024, that didn't bring everything to a stop like some expected. Even after all those arrests, the impact kept spreading, and the tension didn't just disappear. With key figures either locked up or gone, the energy in Broward shifted, but it never fully settled down. People connected to both sides kept going back and forth online, throwing shots, keeping the situation active in the public eye, and making sure it stayed in conversation. Kodak Black ended up in a complicated position through all of this. On one side, he was focused on his music, trying to push his career and keep his label moving forward. But on the other side, he kept losing people close to him. First Whiz, then Psycho getting locked up, and more names connected to his circle either facing serious charges or dealing with heavy situations, making everything around him feel unstable and unpredictable. It was a lot hitting all at once, and people started noticing the shift in Yak almost immediately. His music began sounding different, more pain, more frustration, and lines that hinted at everything he was dealing with behind the scenes. It wasn't just about success or hits anymore. It felt heavier, like the reality around him was finally catching up in a serious way. At the same time, law enforcement kept building their cases, making it clear they weren't done yet. Reports suggested more investigations were still open, and authorities were watching closely, trying to stop anything else from escalating further. The streets might have seemed quieter on the surface, but it wasn't because things were solved. It was because so many key people were no longer out there. And even now, people still debate how everything grew so fast and got out of control. What started as local tension turned into something much bigger, pulling in music, loyalty, and non-stop conflict, all colliding and leaving a lasting impact on everyone involved. Wham's Spender Benz ended up being one of the last ones still active, keeping Double M's name alive in the music scene, while also talking about building his own label. He was still pushing forward, trying to turn momentum into something bigger. But even with those moves, he never fully stepped away from the streets, and that kept him in risky situations that didn't go unnoticed. After Jib's passing, rumors say Wham started moving more aggressively, getting deeper involved, and making bold claims in his music that had people paying close attention. On the track KTB, Wham rapped, "Better not try to run." Yeah, I'm on that. Lil J got put in the ground. I caught me 3. You know that's facts. And those lines instantly had people reacting everywhere. His lyrics painted a vivid picture of everything going on around him, but at the same time, they brought even more attention and pressure his way. Reports also said Wham was moving unpredictably at times and dealing with personal struggles behind the scenes, which made his situation even more complicated. All of that combined kept him in a position where the spotlight stayed on him and the risks around him never fully faded. In 2024, there was even a moment where Wham was injured during a situation involving a woman, and when he later posted a photo showing his injured hand, fans immediately got concerned. It was another sign that things around him were still unstable and far from slowing down. Then, in August 2025, everything came to a tragic end that shocked a lot of people. Authorities found Wham on the ground with serious injuries, and even though he was rushed for medical help, he didn't survive, closing the chapter in a devastating way. Witnesses said there had been some kind of argument before everything escalated,
and within seconds, multiple loud shots were reported, turning the scene chaotic fast. At first, many believed rivals were behind it, but as investigators looked deeper, attention started shifting toward the possibility that someone he knew might have been involved, making it even more complicated. Rumors spread quickly across social media, but no clear answers have ever been confirmed, leaving a lot of questions still unanswered. The entire Broward County situation became one of the most intense and talked about conflicts connected to the rap scene, and the outcome has been heavy. So many people involved are either gone or facing serious legal consequences, and for those still connected, the future remains uncertain and unpredictable. If you made it this far, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and drop a comment with your thoughts. What do you think really happened in all of this?